you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're listening from. This is the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. My name is Christian Dale. Today we're going to talk a little bit about thinking, a lot about it really, what it can do for you and how you can better make this tool serve you. So what is thinking? I mean, everybody does it. We don't really know. It's something that happens in our heads, a place where we really can't see. We can't even be for sure that it's there because, after all, no one can see their own brain. But sure, we're all under the assumption that that's where it comes from. So sure, let's go with that. It doesn't really make any difference where it originates, where it comes from. It only matters that it's happening. It's a reality we all share. It's a powerful tool. I think most people would agree on that. I can already see how many people are seeing this and hearing it with almost a bittersweetness when it comes to the idea of thought, the processes that go on in our own minds, our habits that we picked up over time from from places that we can't really readily identify. We don't exactly know where all of it comes from, what the powerhouse is of our own mind and what drives our thoughts, but hopefully we can explore. Hopefully we can, at the very least, try to direct our thoughts more purposefully into a direction and to create something, to do something to serve our own purposes better. Because we talk about having minds, we talk about having thoughts, but on the other hand, I think we fear we're almost vulnerable to it at the same time. You hear, and that's where you hear a lot of this anxiety, a kind of a fear and a lack of understanding, because as much as we feel we're in control of our own minds, we feel our minds have definitely some kind of control over us, right? People don't want you to look at it. I mean, I can't read anyone's mind, but the thought of that, it's the one last safe haven, a place where you'd be safe to be whatever you wanted to be, to express whatever feelings you had, and at the same time, it's still a place of incredible vulnerability for a lot of people. You don't want to let people in. Even if you ever had a significant other, somebody you really trust, you share with them, you share thoughts with them, but you don't share your own mind. You don't share your mind itself. It doesn't really work that way. People don't really trust each other enough for that. And how would you even go about it? Could you tell me? Sharing your own mind. I'd say you don't really need to do that. You want a person to you want to share your mind with somebody, you just start with a thought. Because a thought is going to be a building block of your mind. It's going to tell a person where you're coming from, what kind of ideas you think about, you've been juggling around in your own head, because by the time you've told a person what you've been thinking, it's already been happening. You've already thought about it 2 or 3 times and gone over in your own head how this might sound when you tell another person. Trying not to come off a certain way, being very careful, because we have to claim our own minds, right? We take responsibility for what goes on in them, and at the same time, people hold each other responsible too. So there's a lot of pressure. So oftentimes there's just a better understanding that we should just not speak on what goes on in our own minds, the truth, what we really think about. It's just better to just keep things going smoothly. Talk about the weather, talk about anything else, talk about anything that's not going on in your own head. But at the same time, if you know that most people are thinking that, right? Most people are afraid of what things are going on in their own mind, or have some kind of degree of fear and uncertainty, and wouldn't want anybody else to certainly know what's going on in there. And so what they do is they avoid it. They pretend. We have to pretend to a certain degree. It's better we do the formalities, right? Good morning, how are you, how you doing? But that's not really genuine. And then when you're dealing with your mind and you're dealing with thoughts, you're trying to find, it's the one place where you have to find something, some meaning. Meaning becomes more important. Things that are tangible almost break down in your own mind. Doesn't matter, food doesn't matter in your mind. Food affects our bodies, and it may power your brain, but it doesn't. The idea of food, it becomes only an idea. The physical substance is not really required when you deal with it in the mind, as with many other things. So it's the meaning that's important. So it completely does a 180 when it comes to the things that we deem important. We are very physical people. Anyone, anywhere, any country. We're physical. We deal with tangible things. We like to see things. Prove it. Show me. Right? But our mind is all about meaning. And anything can enter the mind. Anything can get in, but it gets in as an idea. And we question what its significance is, what it really means. When people talk about meaning, they're like, well, what is this? What is this? What's the outcome? What's its goal? What is what can happen as a result of this, of learning this truth? What does it mean when you combine it with something else? Because sometimes you bring one idea with another and it means different things, and you bring different ideas together. The idea of food, everybody loves food, and you think about it with, let's say, freedom or choice. You want to, that's a very different feature or picture than it is when you think about it in food in the terms of health. Because one, you got an image of yourself eating whatever you like, thinking of foods that you really like the most, the ones that you grew up with, the ones that you're still seeking to recreate the recipe, but you're not quite there yet. And then you just got health, and you're like, oh, well, a whole bunch of other ideas came in. Restriction, right? Discipline, sticking to a diet, right? So each one of these ideas, the ideas that you think about, they share different relationships. It's not physical, but it's all about relationships. It's all about meaning and how they fit together and what perspective we're looking at them in. But more than that, I like to see them as a tool of empowerment. Each one of our minds are unique in their own way, influenced influenced by our environment, influenced by our inner thoughts, and influenced by factors that we can't really explain where they come from. We don't know. There's a significant portion that we don't know. They call that the unconscious mind, where you have a bunch of influences, experiences that may have happened in reality, in your dream, that affect you, influence your preferences. Maybe you had a certain, the fragrance of something, right? Isn't that crazy? Just the smell. You think about the physical act of smelling something, and that may stimulate appetite. And then when you see something, you associate that smell with a certain image or a certain craving, right? You then develop. Now you're into Oreos. You're into some candy, sour things, candy, fruity smells, anything. And you may not ever be able to explain where that characteristic came from. It just becomes a part of your personality. So there's a lot of things that happen that we just take credit for, even though we don't know where they come from. They're just harmless. They live in our heads. It's like I love sour things. I like lemons. I love stuff like that. I don't know where that came from. Was it something? Is it a factor of some kind of mental something that happened when I was a kid? Maybe a positive experience that I had, and now I just like sour things? Or was it just part of me? That's just how it was going to be. I was always going to like sour things. I love sour candy. I like lemons, lemonade. You get the idea. So what can we change? Can we change, influence what's going on in our heads? Can we get rid of things that we don't really want to be there? Can we steer our minds maybe to a better place? That's the prolonging idea. Can we truly ever have complete control over our own minds? Can we have autonomy? What does it mean to have autonomy with respect to your mind? Full autonomy, full independence. Not taking in what you aren't aware of, what influences you aren't aware of. There's books out there. They say you're constantly being influenced. Your unconscious mind is influenced, even though you're not conscious of it. And your conscious mind has influence. Obviously, you see something, you're aware, you create memories for it. Anything you remember is a part of your conscious mind, your conscious experience. Things that happen in a moment, things you can detail word for word, minute for minute, hour per hour. What experiences you went through. I love it. I like it. I like the idea of the mind. I like that the idea that you can change, that it can progress, that it grows with you. It's your mind, it's your universe, so to speak, right? They say your mind, your brain, it's just powerful, the most powerful computer to date, right? They haven't made something quite like it yet. I'd like to see the day. But for now, we should revel in it, in what we possess. And using it to its full potential is, you don't have to, but you ought to. You ought to at least explore. You ought to at least explore the possibilities. Give your mind that benefit. That's what you owe it to your own self. And it's because it's relating to you. Everyone has a personal stake in it, right? How you benefit, the direct benefits that you get from your own mind, and what things happen with you, is you're the only one to benefit from it. I don't benefit at all. I only benefit from what my mind benefits from, what I benefit from. So everyone has a place. Everyone has a lane that you can really call your own, really make your own mark. But at the same time, we're humans, so we can share our ideas. We can share what we've learned with each other, different strategies of how to deal with our thoughts, deal with ideas, and just procure our best judgment, our best selves from all that information. Whatever information we end up feeding our minds, whether intentionally or unintentionally, is going to contribute to influence. It's going to leave its mark, right? It's there. It's already, the seed of the idea is being planted. As we speak, even now, it's planted. The idea, the understanding that our thoughts have that kind of power. And when we get back, we'll get more into it.
Are you looking to learn more about the latest trends from the fitness world? Are you confused by all of the different trends that are out there? The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place for you. The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place to come for people of all skill and interest levels. Join us as we explore the latest trends in the fitness world. Does that new exercise really work? Should I try yoga? Whatever your question, chances are good you'll find an answer on the GSMC Fitness Podcast.
And we're back. We just came from talking about the idea of the mind and what it's for, as well as the originality of it. How everyone really benefits from a more improved mind, more control over their mind, perhaps. A way that they can really capitalize on the tool, on the feature that all human beings have, but are a little bit afraid to exploit its potential because of, among other things, the idea of fear, the idea that the mind is going to act on its own in some way, and it does act on its own. It does present ideas to us that may or may be pleasant, may or may be appropriate for whatever time that we're in. You could find yourself talking or thinking about food when in places where you don't want to, thinking about sleep where you really should be working, thinking about where you should be sleeping. You're thinking about work. So how is it that we have it, we all possess it, but we're almost, it's like a battle for control. When we're not using it, we're not having it within our control. It's kind of off doing its own thing according to whatever agenda it really wants to fulfill. We don't really know completely how to control it. But if we could somehow influence it, guide it into a place of interest where we might be more productive with it, then that would benefit us all. And everyone's individual relationship with their own mind. That would mean that we could sleep when we need to sleep, work when we need to work, push harder when we need to push harder, and then know when to pull back. Everything would be in accordance with what we want for that moment. But what we're talking about now is influence. And the mind and our thoughts, mind and thoughts are kind of using it interchangeably, as the mind is the source of thoughts but it doesn't really matter. Mind affects your thoughts affect your mind, vice versa. But it also carries that same relationship with the body. You've heard it a million times, mind-body relationship. Some people say, the mind affects the body affects the mind. Some people say there's no real separation of the two, that they're one and the same. And if that's the case, let's treat it as such. Let's treat it as such. Whatever happens to us physically is going to have a mental effect, and vice versa. Now, obviously, it's because you do something doesn't necessarily have changes that are visible, that are tangible. But when you have something good happen to you, you feel good. When things are not as good, they don't feel as good. You don't feel as good. It takes from you, actually. It takes energy from you. So the mind is constantly being influenced by the environment around us. It's an instrument that is influenced, but also influences our own lives. Whatever happens in our lives is going to change and then have another change from the mind. So what we put in, it's given something out too. Realize that whatever environment you're in, whatever situation that you put yourself in for your mind to be influenced, which is everything, every situation, from when you go to work to what you eat, your living situation, your social relationships, family, these things all play a part. They're all relevant and become thought food for your own mind. And eventually it's going to give back what it's being fed. It's going to absorb whatever is around you, even when you're not necessarily listening. You'll find that you may remember something one day when you display certain preferences for something, or something sounds familiar, something sounds or stimuli has a certain influence, or you display certain preferences that you can't understand. It's because you're being influenced by forces unknown. And they exist in our reality, but I say forces unknown because we don't know the origin. We don't always know when the seed of the influence was planted, but it's been, and your mind goes along with it. What influences your mind chooses to stick, and what information it chooses to let go and not really do anything with is really not within our understanding. We can't really differentiate which our own unconscious mind's preferences for what it lets in and what it lets out. But over time, it develops favorites. You know, over time, it will develop a pattern of thought. So if you ever want to know what you are thinking, what you're being influenced by, just find out what you think about. What comes out of your mouth. What is there? What's constantly around you? You gravitate towards the things that your mind is thinking about or being influenced by. Some kind of need, right? Interpreting a need. It's always there. So you could have a situation where a person, even people, influence each other. We say things to each other. We give each other compliments. We maybe aren't so nice to each other. How do you deal with that? That's for later. We're going to talk about exactly how to safeguard yourself. But just understanding that people, anything, an immeasurable amount of things can influence you and influence your thought processes and influence your mood. It's going to have a kind of a chain reaction for how you treat people and what you give back into the world, right? So you owe it to yourself to at least be aware, if you do nothing about it, which I hope you do, but to at least be aware that you are getting some kind of energy that is influencing your behavior, influencing your thoughts. You have a person, they say maybe, it's a common thing. They say, people are kind of scared that a person won't like them, right? So they just thought of that alone, even without the person displaying any action that really supports that fear. We go along with that idea. Whether intentional or unintentional, we go along with the idea until we create a world, a perception. Our actions start to move according to this thing that we now understand as some kind of truth, but it's not really substantiated in truth. It's substantiated in your mind. Your mind is governing your reality. So even if it's not physically happening around you, you can't move objects and stuff like that. It's going to determine behaviors. It's going to find a way to get out. So you hear a thought, you hear something, you get stimuli from the world, and then you may not even react in the moment. Some person may say they don't really like you. And you may not bother with that. You may be able to brush it off. You're having a good day. And then when you least expect it, that your mind kind of remembers these things and will just bring it up if it really bothered you. You ever have those moments where you don't think you're bothered in the moment. You're not really bothered by it. Your present conscious mind isn't bothered by what may have happened to you, what someone may have done, what kind of negative experience you might have had. And then later on, months later, you maybe are more susceptible to the thoughts in your mind. See, we go through cycles where we're more vulnerable to our mind and we're less vulnerable. And being vulnerable, influenced by our own minds, this doesn't have to be an inherently negative thing. It means there's a connection, right? There's a connection. You have a thought and then you might have an action. That's ideal. You hear your car alarm, you may have the thought, you got to turn it off. That's annoying. I want to get rid of that. That doesn't have really lasting changes, right? Your behavior is not going to be affected, except you're going to probably want to avoid those kinds of actions. You're going to want to avoid whatever outcome led to that happening in the first place. You have to get out of bed, you have to go move your car, change the parking, the alarm, or whatever. You're going to just try to improve. So that's good. Ideally, that's good. Your mind, it's influence, and it's giving you feedback on what's happening around you, what you should do. And if you take it in stride, you could really benefit from that. So you should listen to your own mind, but you should be careful what's being fed to it. You should be careful. You can't control what goes in all the time. There are influences out of your control, and the sooner you're able to recognize that, the sooner you'll be more honest, the sooner you'll be more active and aware of what kinds of influences you're most vulnerable to. You're going to see a pattern eventually. So this thought, it comes up eventually after a time. I have this happen to me. What's influenced me? When I go to the gym. I work out. I love going to the gym. I love working out. I love it because I got this image, right? And we'll talk about image later. But I enjoy it. And while I'm doing it, while I'm exerting myself, putting in work, I all of a sudden will have a thought, this strange thought. Things just happen. It could be something that happened in the past and it just comes up. Something that somebody said to me. Something that they maybe made me feel influenced. And it's crazy that I'm doing something positive for myself, right? I'm working out. Why am I getting these ideas, these thoughts of these discomforting experiences and being reminded of them? Why is my mind doing that to me? And that's where the anxiety comes from. That's where people are afraid to look in their own mind. You're afraid to get too deep with anything that has to do with what happens in that area, because that's our personality. That's the construction of the influences, our thoughts, and what we've done about it. How vulnerable we are to our own thoughts. You tend to read that in another person when you see them, and you read that in yourself. So people are a little bit more stronger or less vulnerable. It's because that connection with their mind. It doesn't mean that they don't listen to the things that goes on in their head. It just means that they're not as easily influenced. They don't take all the information. Why is that? They don't take that all to heart. Someone gives them something maybe not so positive. It doesn't go travel through their body, electrical signals become a thought in their brain one day when they're working out in the gym, trying to be positive, and it's trying to pull them back a couple steps. You're making great strides. It's trying to pull you back. So your mind it's there. This influence means that it's a constant war. There's a constant vie for power, for space, for in your own mind that you're losing. You can lose ground. And what you need to do is learn how to keep your ground. Every person, we acknowledge that we're influenced, but we need to know how to keep our own ground. Keep a solid image somewhere that's going to stabilize us, even during the storm. We'll be back with how.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey, we just came back from talking about influence and where it comes from. Influence is everywhere. Influence on your own mind. And that influence is going to determine a lot for you in the long run. It's going to determine how you feel and how you respond to things. It's going to plant these seeds that can sprout at any time, seeds of thought that can sprout when you least expect it, even when you're being as positive as you can, as healthy as you can. So you need to know how to process all this information, process the information that you're getting in your own mind, even when you're not necessarily aware of it. Otherwise, it's just going to be a situation where you get blindsided. You're in the gym, you're at Six Flags, you're in a place of positivity, and these thoughts come back, and they almost, you take them to heart. You take them as to mean something more than simply your own mind rattling on, remembering things of the past that seem significant, because your mind knows what's significant. It's going to remember that you felt something. You felt something. It knows when you feel something and knows when you don't. You can't really hide it. It's internal. That's a part of the subconscious. Even if you try not to respond, it's going to register that reaction that you felt a little bit differently about that. You moved a little bit differently with accordance to that last move. It's going to know that. The nuances of your body language and how you move. It's inside you after all. And there's no use in trying to pretend that it's not listening. What we can do for our own selves to better our health, to better a healthy mind, is to create an image of ourselves, a place where we want to be. As much as the environment influences us, it should also go that we can influence our environment and we can influence our own internal dialogue, the kinds of things that our minds pick up on. We all know there's a zone of things based on our own interests which we just don't pick up on. People can be talking about just irrelevant stuff, things that just go right over your head, and you never remember them. You never think about them. It doesn't cost you a bit of energy. It's just automatic screening that your mind does without that information. It doesn't show up in your dreams. It doesn't show up anywhere in your life. Now, you want to be able to willingly turn that on whenever you can. If you can take control of that method, then that's going to help you screen out negativity. So you have to create an image of yourself that's more powerful, that's stronger and more prominent than what the environment is giving you, the constant feedback noise of our environment, of what's happening in the world. You need to have a prominent image. For me, I constantly work on where I want to be, at least in my own mind. I'm not physically every single day making leaps and bounds into the future that I want for myself, but I like to think that I'm at least putting my mind in that position. I mean, you can't. Sometimes things they don't just land into your lap. No, you got to do it consistently. You start with the mental image of yourself, and you got to put it has to be strong. It has to be something meaningful, something that you care about. And that your mind is going to listen to that and take that information in. You have to be able to create that image, which is more important than what's happening around you. And it can be a goal, if you will. Or maybe you imagine yourself in a better place. And that has to take dominance over all the things that happen. It should be something that you can always go back to in whatever context it is, no matter what struggle it is. Because the environment, the influences are going to attack the integrity of your mind from all kinds of angles. So it may not be enough to just have one image. You may need to have several, but they need to be connected. They need to be connected and relevant enough that you can unify them, that they can defend your own mind from all points and over a broad range of influences that can really get in and make you vulnerable to your own mind. Because your mind is just like a recording device. It just records whatever's happening around you, but then it could pick up on relationships. It could pick up on the pattern, the physiological reaction that you have to certain things. And that's where it has its meaning. That's where meaning is derived. You derive the meaning. Your mind just records it. It's going to record that you found meaning in what happened, what happened in your life. It can't see, but it knows that you react to certain things. And it remembers that. Maybe it's important. Maybe that's why it's remembering. But if you get it in your head to put in your influence over your mind, your command over your own mind, all right? That's your universe. That's your universe. So you can't allow these thoughts, these influence to run amok in your own mind. The sooner you get involved, the more of a stake you're going to have. I'm constantly thinking about the image of myself, and no matter what struggle I'm in, because it's necessary. What do people talk about when they say confidence? Be confident. But it's more than that. It's a confidence in your own mind. It's a difference, but it's kind of the same principle. And what is confidence? They say, it's what, you believe in yourself? That's essentially it. You believe in yourself enough. And that belief in yourself and your own mind and your powerful influences that you input is going to keep these other outside influences from being able to take up room. It's just there's not going to be space. And you need to repeat it. It needs to be vivid. It needs to be vivid enough that it appears in dreams, right? I've had dreams where, right, my programming, this mental programming I put on myself, where I could be in a nightmare. I could be in some unpleasant situation, and that reaction, I just have the instinctual reaction that I'm going to respond a certain way because I'm being threatened, right? And I go back to my training. I'm in my mind already. You're in your dream. That's the closest place you could go. But a lot of people, you enter these dreams, and the dreams are like your subconscious. It's accumulation of all the whatever crap you've absorbed throughout the day, both the good and the bad. Your desires and your fears, your anxieties, it's all there. Unfortunately, it's overwhelming. Is overwhelmingly in the favor of the negative, and because you're not putting in enough of that positive. So I remember, you ever have a lucid dream? You almost wake up, but you're not awake. You're aware of what's happening. You're in your own mind, aware of what's happening, aware that it's a dream. You become the most powerful person in that dream. They can't really touch you, right? Nothing can really hurt you. You look at the things totally different. And that's what thoughts do. That's what influence does. And creating an image is going to do. It's going to release you from the influence of negativity. And you have to make sure that your image is something you personally believe in. And I think it's of yourself. Belief in yourself, a belief in your own strength, right? That's what we're talking about here. If you don't have that, then that image, when you are faced with a threat, really, and it doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about literal, outside, crazy person. I'm talking about just a question. A question could be a threat. Someone questions you when your worth might be called into question. Someone kind of throws something at you, energy that you don't normally think about. You're not questioning your existence, but for some reason, you don't feel good enough. At times, you may not feel good enough. They lead you to believe that you may not be good enough for them, for someone else, for anything, and then that image so that's a threat right there. And that image is going to be a first line of defense. It's going to be how you understand yourself. And if you don't understand yourself, if you don't know who you are, and you haven't been willing to learn, then it's going to be a problem for you to defend yourself from that influence. Those outside influences are going to have no problem walking all over you, walking all over this image that you've made for yourself, but it wasn't really powerful enough, wasn't prominent. You got to repeat it the same way, because understand, you have to work harder with this image than you would when you're being influenced by the environment. It's quick to be influenced. You're quick to be influenced by the environment. You're quick to be influenced by people's words, their opinions of you, right? You know this is true. You can see it. You know a person quick to be influenced by other people. And then you say to yourself one day, I'm great. And people almost say it to yourself, I'm great. I can be better. I'm more than this. And people the first time you say it like you're just scared, like you're shaking, like this newborn fawn, your knees shaking. You don't really know what you're doing. It feels weird to say that. A lot of people think that's ego. Oh, that's ego. I don't want to be like narcissistic, but it's you. I'm not talking about not narcissism. That's the extreme. That's an extreme. But even from them, you can learn that positive or this constant reinforcement of these positive ideas, influences that come from you, you can gain a command over your own mind. So I'm not saying you shouldn't suggest that, but they're proof. Narcissistic tendencies is proof that the other direction, the other end, is just as powerful. Now, don't do that. Don't go out your way to do that. You should scale it back. As with everything, moderation. You want to have balance. But this image becomes more powerful, more prominent. You need to be comfortable. You can look at yourself right now. If you're not comfortable with telling yourself, simple, it's not a matter of belief. Just say it right now. I'm better than this. I can be more. I'm worth more. And really believe in yourself. Really think of something when you talk about that. And you say that, those three things, you say it one time, and you almost don't believe it. You don't believe it because the first thing you do when you hear that come out of your own mouth, that you say, how? How am I good? How am I better? Really, where? Where is this? I need to see some proof. I want, and then you scale back. You say, hey, I want to be better. And that's just as powerful. You may not be able to derive true prominent power from saying I'm better than this, I'm more than this, because you may not really feel that's being honest to yourself. Well, be more honest. Do it exactly, you know yourself. Do it in the most effective form that's going to be true to yourself, but that's going to make progress in the right direction. Say, I want to be better. I want more for myself. And let that be the image. Let that be the image of you trekking harsh terrain to get to an ultimate worthwhile goal. And you fill your mind with that. You fill your mind with whatever image. It doesn't have to be some treacherous trek, but something that you can believe in, something powerful enough that's going to ring true, that's going to change your life. We'll be back with more on that.
GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast gives you advice on everything from hair to fashion to skincare products. We'll talk about the latest trends in makeup, hairstyles, and anti-aging remedies. And we'll cover all of the newest fashion trends. If you have an interest in or questions about the beauty trends that might work best for you, the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey, we're back with the GSMC podcast. We just came back from talking about mental image, right? Creating a mental image for yourself as a defense. It could be whatever you want, whatever it is, but it could be a dragon, it can be you, a better version of yourself, something attainable, ideally, that you may work towards, or it doesn't really have to be attainable. It just matters what the meaning is behind it. It should elicit strong feelings from you, strong positive feelings, ideally, strong, powerful, positive feelings that you can use to defend yourself from outside negative influences, outside background noise that takes up space in your psyche. This is going to protect you. This is going to extend your longevity. This is just the ability for your mind to take on tasks, because you're always going to be refreshed by this image if you believe in it, if you are about it, if this is really important to you. It could be a diamond. I'd choose a diamond, but not because of what society says is valuable, a diamond being valuable in terms of monetary gain, but in terms of hardness. I remember I learned that it's pretty hard. You'd have to, I don't know what you need to scratch it, but it was like on the scale of other things that can scratch diamonds. You'd have to find something harder than the diamond in order to scratch it, basically. So that to me is something I like to embody those qualities. I love to embody those qualities. That's pretty steep quality. That's pretty steep. That might be too unrealistic for me. So I might need to be a little bit more, find something, dial it back, get to that point, gain confidence in myself, gain that level of where I'm deserving of such an image. If I just decide to make that image, that could be, it can still work. It could still work, but the problem then can arise when you when it comes to projection. Projection is similar to the mental image that you were working up, right? Everyone should have their mental image. You've been working really hard on it, something important to you. But the difference in the mental image, the difference between projection and the mental image is that projection has to do with more so attack. Projection has to do with putting out this image that you've created for yourself in the world, in your own world, in your mind, and putting it out in the world. Letting your actions, letting it dictate your actions, letting it help and drive your actions. That's what it is. All right? There's a difference. So when you have just the image of yourself, that's good. But all the mental image does is put you on defense. All it is defense. It's going to stabilize you. It's going to stabilize your thoughts. It's going to eliminate that background noise, but it's not going to make you go anywhere. Right? It's not, if that alone is not going to let you go anywhere. How many people do you know? And I think everyone knows at least one person where they're really into themselves. They have a high opinion of themselves, but they haven't really done anything significant according to the things that they're interested in. Right? They're just saying how great they are, how much they're about this or that, whatever it is they believe in. But it doesn't actually amount to anything because it's not being put into action. It's not doing it. You're not doing anything with it. You're just saying you're great. You're just saying you're about this, you're about that, what you can do, what you'd be capable of, what you would do if you were in that situation. Oh, if it was me, I would do it like this. Well, it's not you, and you're not. Guess what? You're not doing anything. So that person just you see it. You can see right through them almost, can't you? And for all the image that they're building up of themselves, that they're trying so hard to hold on to, that they're trying to convince everyone of, to eliminate the influences around them, right? It makes you think, what kind of things are they dealing with from the outside world? What kind of thoughts that they need to be so deluded? They need to be so deluded because it's deluded because you're not doing anything with it. You're just saying you're like that, but you're not really putting anything to work. You don't want to become grow up, be an old person with these strong opinions of yourselves, but you're not really, it hasn't translated into any action. It was never strong enough to move matter. Why was that? Matter. I'm not talking about telekinesis. I'm talking about moving something with your body, with your mind. That's your body. Your body's matter. You pick up a weight. You go and study. That is your mind moving matter right there. That's it. You don't need to move things. That's the power you have right now, to move things with your mind. You move yourself. And your thoughts are not putting it into action. You're not projecting. And it's not a matter of you're not thinking of a strong enough image. It's a matter of allowing those images to translate into action. Make them move. Don't just say you're a dragon or a thing, you're a king or a queen, or you're great enough to be that. You're noble enough to be that. Well, now get down and start proving it. Show something. Go out and do something. Do something that you care about, right? I can't call myself have this image of myself in my head, my mind, holding me, of me being some king or whatever, this great thing, and then I'm about strength. I like being strong, and then not be working out. It's just like, what are you doing? And it doesn't mean that if I want to be strong, then that automatically translates to working out. But you need to make sure that it's in line. It's whatever it is. It could be you being strong can mean being smart for you. Then hit the books, hit it, do it. That's fine. But your actions need to be in line with it. You can't be, you ever seen these people? Yes, queen. Yes, queen. Yeah, you're queen? You're queen. You really think that highly of, that's good. That's good. I'm not faulting you for that. But if you're not putting in that work, that effort to be deserving of such a title, that's where people will look at you like, that's where you can develop that delusional, you get into that delusional state. You get into that almost narcissistic state. It's hard. You need balance and moderation. That's why I have to talk about it. We have to talk about it because we need balance. If we don't have it, it needs to be healthy. It needs to be right where it is. You need to become balanced when it comes to this. Be balanced when it comes to this. Because you don't want to be in that situation. That is going to rub people the wrong way. All the time you see it. People rub people the wrong way because they just think too highly of themselves. Some people are deserving of it. They're like, hey, I think highly of myself. I got a high image of myself. And you know what? I'm doing things with it. It's translating to action. So I'm qualified for this, to think this high of myself, to walk this way, to look at people this way, to maybe treat people a certain way. And that may be true. That's true in itself. People hold themselves to a high standard, and then action, they put in work. You can't really blame them for being great. You can be like, but that doesn't make them not toxic. That doesn't mean that they have a right to treat people or influence people poorly, be a bad influence, and really try to mess with people's mind who are more vulnerable to that kind of thing, to their environment. So they're gonna put that out there because a person like that, they become great, and then what? So now, if you don't have a strong mind and you just move aside for people who are great, people who are more advanced in their mental development and their image and projecting, which is translating those thoughts, those feelings of yourself, those positive feelings into positive action. And they come along and then you think because they say something, then that's how it has to be because they're where they are. No, it doesn't have to be. And what does that say when you get to a place that you're a queen, but then you treating people around you like they're like they're peasants? Like you're gonna put that energy out there into the world, and then try to make people vulnerable off that? That's wild. That's a sign of, to me, that's a sickness almost. It's just like you're abusing. It's crazy. It's not really noble. And you people out there who are vulnerable to it, don't take that for your truth. Become your own kings and queens. You can't be having these people walking around like they're above you or any of that stuff. But you certainly shouldn't do that either. So it's a balance. You gotta really find it, fulfill the purpose. Don't just become so obsessed with the vision that you just shut people out and all this. It's just crazy. You're in fantasy land, and nah, that's not for me. That's not for me. Understand that the image that you decide to create for yourself is fragile. It needs constant maintenance in order for it to work. If you, and in reality, there's nothing, why action? Why? Reality is world building, and it's also shattering as well. It can be shattering, right? So you have this high opinion of yourself, going beyond your means, really, what you really put into action, right? And then you are going to eventually find a situation that is going to show you that you're not invulnerable, that you grossly overestimated your abilities and who you are. And that is not going to be good. And when that's shattered, you're going to it's going to be difficult to pick yourself up from that. You don't want to deal with, just start healthy, start balanced from the beginning. You don't have to have a worry. You can get to that level. There's no reason you can't get to a high level and still be decent. Still be balanced about things. Right? And then at the same time, reality's world building. Those actions, reality, that is going to support you. You see an Olympic gold medalist, right? They got a reason. They got strong reasons to be like, I'm the best. And when they say it, when they have that image of themselves, I'm the best, they believe that. That's reality for them. That's reality. It's truth now. Everyone has different frequencies they vibrate off of, different things they resonate with. When I say positive, I don't necessarily mean flowers and medals. Find what you resonate with. Therefore, your image resonates with. You create the image. The image protects you from external negative influence and then drives action, which then feeds back into the image. That's how you change the way you think. That's how you make progress for yourself, okay? Now I want to thank you guys on behalf of the Health and Wellness Podcast, courtesy of GSMC Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe, Give a share, give a like, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all right? Peace.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.